I was out on a little hike yesterday with a friend, and I was sharing about how YouTube is kind of part of my daily life right now, where I do a YouTube video almost daily. For now, I don't think that's going to continue, but who knows? And as I was sharing how that has really shifted something, it has healed something in me that I would never have expected would happen by doing these YouTube videos. And I feel I'm still in the process of that. And so as I was sharing that, I just knew that this would be my next video because it feels significant. And I think there are many, many others who feel like I do. Most of us are terrified to do public speaking. I think it's the second scariest thing after death or something, or maybe even before death. And many are doing a lot of work to overcome that. And of course, that's all very helpful. For some reason, I was moved to do these YouTube videos, and I wanted to be myself. I didn't want to come across as somebody who's, trying to be something I'm not, which can happen a lot. I just wanted to be 100% myself. And if there would be any message in that, as I'm speaking it now, it would simply be, the transmission of just being yourself, warts and all. And of course, that fits in so well with my regular messages of self-love and how self-love has been a huge part of my journey, my spiritual journey, by unhooking and by allowing everything to be here. So what I started experiencing in the YouTube videos was that I could just basically be myself because there's just me here in a computer and my room, and there's nobody out there interrupting me, judging me, telling me I'm doing it all wrong, uh, turning away because they don't like what I have to say. These are all the things that I basically grew up with. And that installed a belief that nobody cares what I have to say, and not taking me seriously, and basically turning away from me. It's like, who do you think you are? So that, there's the imposter syndrome, there's not being good enough. There's a lot in there. And I know that probably most of us, if not all, we have that somewhere in the background because the world we live in is not welcoming us in our gifts and in our authenticity. And we had to push it down and truncate it most of our lives. And then here later in life, where you feel you've done a lot of work and inside, and you've done a lot of healing, and you feel you've just come so much into your sovereignty and your authenticity. And yet, there's these background suggestions, hypnotic suggestions that want to keep pulling us in. And when I started my YouTube channel here a few months ago again, or started it up again, I wasn't really thinking about what I'm sharing now because I didn't know that yet. I just felt there was so much in here that I had been, holding back. And it just felt like this immense relief to finally just let it come out uncensored, not really knowing what would come out next time, but just feeling like, oh, there's an energy here, it wants to speak or it wants to express, and just go with that. So in that, it felt very authentic and real and valuable, good for me. It felt a relief for me just to be able to actually express that. But what's been interesting about it in my specific case, and yours may be totally different, is that in my family when I grew up, it really was like, I felt ignored, interrupted. They would talk about themselves instead. There was just no receptivity. And why would I not start believing like nobody cares what I have to say? Even when I wrote my book, Imagine Being Kind to Yourself, and I showed it to them, there was barely any interest. It was so interesting. And I remember my mom, she said, we don't write books in our family. And it was a huge insight for me to understand why they react that way. Like in our family, we don't do that, right? We stay down here and we are not a somebody out there. So that's all fair enough. But when I sit here just with myself and there's nobody who's going to interrupt me. And except if my mind wants to do something, which it does sometimes. There are times when I speak and and if I dip into some of these areas that I want to talk about, that what is it? If I start sharing some of the deeper things, then there is sometimes a glitch of like, you're not allowed to talk about that. You don't know that. You can't talk about that. And it's a little bit of a jolt in my whole body. My whole nervous system gets this jolt. That still happens sometimes, not often at all. But I can now see how that was what I grew up in. It's like, no, you're not allowed to talk about that. Who do you think you are? So as I've been doing this and nobody is here in my room on my computer who's going to jump in and say, come on, I mean, who do you think you are, or whatever it is. So it's giving me the freedom to just speak whatever comes out without any restrictions. I cannot even tell you how healing that has been for me and still is, where these old layers that we all have in us, they're just melting and melting and melting. Now you might think, well, there might be comments that are not very kind that might still do that. That's true. I think I've had one of them for the last 3 months. And you know what? It was really okay because I could see that comment was just a reflection of my past and how that would normally scare me. But here was like, oh, there it is, right in front of my eyes, not a little voice in my head. It was just right there and I could see it clearly. And I was almost grateful for it because I didn't want to react to that. I didn't need to react to that. So it was very liberating also. So we all have our ways of expressing ourselves or not expressing ourselves. But I can tell you that has been unbelievably healing for me to just sit here with my computer and basically speak to the whole world, because YouTube can reach the whole world, right? But it doesn't matter. This is like my safe space where I can just be myself, share from a very deep place, a very vulnerable place, because it's just me. And where it goes after that, I don't know. I don't care. The most important thing is that I am just being here, being myself, and allowing this flow in me to just flow in whatever way it wants, with whatever words, with whatever subject. And everything I share here is coming from a deep place of resonance, of authenticity, of wisdom, realization, and including, my vulnerable sides, which this certainly has been. And I can just share that too, because it doesn't matter. It's part of the expression. The expression does not have to be perfect in any way or spiritual in any way or sound like I'm a super expert. None of that. The expression is Pernilla being here now, open to whatever is moving through. And I can just do that in a very relaxed place, in a very joyful, loving, peaceful way. And that is very new for me if I look back in my life, to really feel so peaceful around doing this. I don't know if you can relate to any of this. And if you don't, of course, that's just as fine, right? Because this is part of my expression. So I think what I really want to say is that be yourself and find a safe place to start if you want to express. And again, I want to say this is not new for me because I have been expressing for many years, but there's always been that little like, you can't do that. You can't speak like that, nobody wants to hear you. So it's kind of helping that by just doing it anyway, where I feel safe. And then this simply starts dissolving. So I would say it's probably a different way that I share it today than I normally do, like by inviting it and being present with it or just allowing it, which is all part of the whole thing. But here it's just really allowing my true authentic self just to speak, and then know that it might reach one person, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, who knows? But that's not the point. The point is that I am allowing my expression to express in whatever way it wants. And this is coming from somebody who has been very afraid to do that most of my life, because that's the family energy that I grew up in. And it's just amazing. If you have a way to do this, you can even you can just get on a Zoom just with you. And if you have something you want to express, just express it. Basically, just like I'm doing right here. I'm on a Zoom, and then I download it, and then I upload it to YouTube. So there's a few steps there. But if I didn't like this video, I don't need to post it or publish it. I have never done that yet. Everyone has been posted or submitted because I want to be authentic. I don't want to be somebody who tries to get it perfect and it's like, oh, that wasn't perfect. There might have been a glitch here and there where it felt like, the light, or there was something that happened that I would start over. But generally, it just comes. And even when these glitches come that make me like jolt, and sometimes it makes me flush a little bit in my face, that is the old pattern, how I used to be. So there is some remnants. And if I can just be myself here publicly, even with what I used to want to hide all the time, that's amazing. And I do believe that we can all do that. So if this resonates, try a Zoom call just with yourself, record it, and then you can delete it if you want. You don't need to share it with anybody, but you can try and experience what it feels like to do that. So it's your experience, just like this is my experience. And I'm okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, when you do it and feels terrible or whatever, that's fine. Those are the layers that probably have held you back from doing it. So just do it and let those layers come up. Remember, on some of the videos I talk about, you can say, yeah, you can be here too. Yeah, you can be here too. Like the jolt that comes in me is like, oh, you can't. It's like, okay, you can be here too. And that's it. That's it. Of course, I've had years of practice, so it gets easier over time, but we got to start somewhere. So, if if you're moved by this, give it a try and just have some fun with it. And if you absolutely are too scared to publish it, if you were even thinking about that, then just don't. Just delete it and try again. Maybe wear a funny hat or do something that is really weird just to add a little bit to it and make it not so serious. Can be a lot of fun. So I hope you give it a try if it resonates, if you have something you want to share, or if you want to have a conversation with somebody that you haven't had, but you know it's important. You can just do it in front of a mirror. You can do a Zoom call with yourself and delete it, but it gives you practice in moving through these layers that have held you back, maybe your whole life, just as it had with me. So have fun with that.